Hi, now I've been talking about doing an educational video for a while now, so I thought I'd better get off my arse and actually do one, rather than just playing Blitz and having a whale of a time. So this video here, I'm going to try and simplify the London system, which is a very interesting way of playing with the white pieces. And I'm going to try to simplify it into 5 easy to remember steps. And this is an opening which only recently have I had some fun with and become acquainted with myself. And I think it's a very good opening for a lot of players. It's very easy to learn. You can play it as white against everything. So it doesn't matter what black plays, you can play this opening against everything. And I would say it's a great opening for the lazy players out there, because you don't have to learn too much. And in this video, I'm mainly concentrating on the London system with the moves d4, d5. And I've recently filmed a DVD for Chess Base, which will be coming out sometime. And that is about a 7-hour DVD on the London system. So, of course, if you like this short video, go and buy the DVD. But I want to just give you a little overview, and there's only so much I could do in a YouTube video. Of course, for a more in-depth look, you've got to buy the DVD. Now, what is the London system? Well, this is an opening that actually became popular, I believe, in something like 1923, sometime around that, in a tournament in London. And it was played by a lot of the great players at the time. And it's a setup you can play with the move 1d4 against everything. So that's great, because against other as white here, black has a number of options you can play. There's a number of different openings you can play. But generally, the London system you can play against everything. So you save a lot of work. But even though I say that, after the quite extensive work I did on the opening, I came to the conclusion that the London system, we'll have a look at a bit later, you have slightly different setups against 3 options that black plays. So in this first video, we're just going to concentrate on setups with d4, d5. And I'm going to try to explain what you should be doing here with white after these 2 moves. Now, what else can black play against 1d4? Well, the other move black can play is knight to f6, and now my suggested move is always bishop f4. And here black can go for either e6, c5, and these are kind of like Indian setups, so we'll look at them in another video, and also g6, and this is King's Indian setups and Grunfeld setups. So these are the 3 things you have to bear in mind when playing the London system, that black can go d5, we're concentrating on that in this video, but you can also do these g6 systems, I'll look at that in another video, and also ideas with e6 and with c5. And these are the 3 sort of main ideas that black can play, and you just got to be aware to play slightly different against each of these. Of course, you need to adapt your play to the circumstances. But as I said, d4, d5 is what I'm concentrating on in this video. So what are we going to do? Okay, well, rule number 1, very simple rule is, let's just move on to it. When you play the London system, the preferred way I think you should play it is with d4. So we've played that move, taking a stance in the center of the board. And after this move, d4, as you can see by rule 1, we should bring our bishop out. So we've played d4, that's the stance. And now after d5, bishop to f4. And this is the next key move. And this is really the first thing to remember. Now, why do you bring your bishop out here? We're going to see why in a second in the next rule. But this is where you put your bishop in the London system, on quite an active diagonal. And more importantly, when we come to rule 2, which we're come to now, which is we want to move our pawns to e3 and c3. So you get this pawn structure like this. Let me just highlight where you want to place your pawns. I call it a pyramid in the middle of the board. When you create this pyramid, well, your bishop on f4, this one here, is outside of the pawn structure. So let me just bring up rule number 2. And really, against most moves now, nearly every move, you do the same setup. So you don't have to worry about black's options too much. So rule 2, create a pyramid. And this is the pyramid in the center of the board. So you go c3 and e3. This is your second rule. Create a pyramid with your pawns. So it doesn't really matter what black plays here. Generally, what we're black will play c5, knight f6, e6, something like this. It doesn't really matter. Let's say he goes with, shall we say, knight to f6. So let's create the pyramid. And I generally prefer moving my e-pawn first. I think it's a matter of choice. I prefer going e3. This gives me options, in some cases, moving the knight here, but you don't do that. I just want to create my pyramid. So let's say e3. And now a main move here. Again, it doesn't matter. It matters about the move order, but you don't need to be too panicked. Let's say black goes e6, and this is the main thing we're concentrating here. At some point, we finish our pyramid with c3. And you can see now we've finished rule 2. We've created our pyramid, which is a very good base in the center of the board. And hopefully now you can see why our bishop is on the outside of the pyramid. If you think of the bishop as like an archer or a ray gun, obviously if he's outside of the pyramid, on top of the pyramid, he has a good chance to hit the enemy because he can aim those arrows or aim the ray gun at the enemy. But if the bishop was inside the pyramid, so let's put him back in one of these two squares, well, he's not going to do much damage if he's caught in the crypt, is he? He's got to be outside of the pyramid. That's why we place our bishop here. Rule 2 done. Now let's say black plays a move here like c5. This is one of the best moves because black needs to try to attack the center. Now, one thing I really don't do here, I really rarely move the pawn on d4. This is the top of your pyramid. You want to keep it as such, as they say, the elite of the pyramid. Don't start capturing with this pawn because you'll destroy the top of that pyramid. So keep that pawn there. So what's rule number 3? Well, of course, in chess, you need to bring your pieces out. So how do you bring your pieces out? Rule number 3, develop your remaining minor pieces. So this is the third rule I want you guys to remember. And what I mean by that is your minor pieces are your knights and bishops. This is the terminology we use in chess to describe your knights and bishops. Your major pieces are your queen and your rook and even your king. But your minor pieces are your knights and bishops. At the start of the game, you need to bring these out. Now, generally, a little tip I have, I'll explain why a bit later. As soon as black plays e6, I think it's totally safe now to bring my knight on g1 out. But as I'll explain later on, I don't play knight to f3 until black has played e6. So only when black plays e6 do we play knight to f3. This will be explained later on. So the way we set up is by bringing our knights out. So let's say knight to f3, knight, for example, to c6. And now let's bring the other knight out, shall we? Knight to d2. And here, well, black's got two options. We'll look at them both one by one. Black really needs to castle, so he needs to develop this bishop here. Does he move it to e7 or to d6? Now, personally, I think the bishop should move to d6, but a lot of players will move it to e7. So let's have a look at this first. And then to complete rule number 3, we've got one more minor piece to develop, and now a fantastic square for this piece is d3. A brilliant square, because this bishop tucked in behind that top of the pyramid is your best attacking piece, and it's striking down towards this h7 square, which is a key square. And now let's just say that black castles. And here we come on to rule number 4. And rule number 4 is this depends on what black plays. So this depends whether the bishop goes to e7 or to d6. Now, if the bishop goes to e7, we go with our first rule here, knight to e5. So against the bishop coming to this square, we go knight to e5. So let's have a look at this first. And I know this video is a lot to take in. I'm trying to make it as simple as I can, as well as comprehensive. Now against bishop to e7, we go knight to e5. So let's have a look at this one first. And this is a key move in the London system. And this is a move that really helps us generate a brilliant attack. One thing I think you should always do really against bishop e7 is delay castling. Do not castle, because we want to use our pawns to create an attack. And our rook is best on h1, as we'll shortly see. It's quite funny because I know a lot of people are commentating when I spoke about the London system. They said, oh, it's a boring opening. Why are you, an aggressive player, doing a DVD on a boring opening? Now, I don't think that's true. I think you can make nearly any opening what you want it to become. You can make the London system interesting. Trust me, you can. In a DVD for Chess Base, the first 5 games I all include piece sacrifices from white. So you can make any opening interesting. Like you can make this, like you can make the English attacking, you can make the Berlin. Oh no, maybe not the Berlin. Okay, let's forget about the Berlin. But you can make things interesting. And now, after this idea, what is the attacking plan I'm going to recommend? Well, let's just say black plays a move like bishop to d7. A key move here, and a move I really like, is h4. And this move sets up a vicious trap. The other way you can play this position, and another theematic move, is to move the queen around to h3 to increase the pressure on h7. This is another good way of playing. For example, queen f3, and I don't know what black will play here. Let's just say rook c8, queen h3. And this is another very good way to play because you're increasing the pressure on this pawn, and all you need to do now is remove the defender to create checkmate, because you can't go queen takes h7 at the moment. You'll lose your queen to knight takes queen. But if we get rid of the defender, a typical technique in chess, maybe by going bishop g5, taking that one off, maybe by trying knight to g4, then we can get a checkmating attack going. Let's just say, for example, I don't know, let's make a move a6, for example, knight g4. And we can see now that the pressure is building against h7. So this queen f3 is a good idea, but my favourite idea, I love Harry. I want Harry to join in h4. And the idea of this very aggressive move is twofold. Number one, our knight comes to g5, and this is a key idea. And I know this is getting to some depth, but the other idea is we just want to go g4, g5, and you get some really fascinating positions. Now, one thing to bear in mind, if black takes on e5 with a knight, we always go pawn takes e5. And after something like knight to e8, we now see one of the key ideas of having h4 with a rook on h1. And that is the strikingly dangerous move here. Bishop takes h7 check. This is a technique called the Greek gift. And this is why I love having the pawn on h4. For example, king takes bishop. Queen comes in, swooping in with a check. The king has to go back. And now we need to bring our reinforcements in. And a key typical idea, knight to f3. And the knight wants to come to g5, creating queen to h7 checkmate. And I've analysed this kind of idea a bit, and it looks to be pretty much winning for white. For example, knight g5 is such a strong idea. Let's say f6, that maybe looks like it stops knight g5. Oh no, no it doesn't. In come the boys. Knight to g5, and look how strong Harry the h-pawn, dirty Harry the h-pawn, plays a key part. And after, well, queen h7 is going to be checkmate. And if black gets rid of that one, we've sacrificed the second piece, yes we have. But we're now threatening stuff like queen h7 and g6 checkmate, or indeed just g6 straight away and queen h8. And this is an unstoppable checkmate position here. Black is helpless here. So let's just have a think about that again. I know I've gone a long way, and I've gone in some depth here, but I wanted to show you the potential that you have after bishop e7. So if bishop e7 in these setups, let's go back to rule 4. Against bishop e7, you put your knight into e5. So the knight comes into e5. And this is rule number 4. So against bishop e7, when we develop our minor pieces, the knight comes to e5. And this gives you great attacking chances. Brilliant. Now, what if bishop to d6 is played, which I consider a better move? Now, against this move, I don't think knight to e5 is as good. You can play this way, but the problem is now black has better control over this important square. He can aim to exchange off a number of pieces. So I think the best way to play against bishop d6 is simply to retreat your bishop to g3. This is a key idea because if black ever takes on g3, you open up the h-file with a very strong line against that h7 pawn. Black's best move after this nice retreat, it's like a Mexican standoff. You can see them at dawn. They've got their pistols out. You've got pistol on g3 and pistol shooter on d6. And they're waiting for one of them to strike first, because when they do, you're going to give away a bit of the position. And in this position, I think it's key to remember after, let's say, this is a key move, by the way, bishop g3. Worth remembering, the Mexican standoff. Let's say black castles. Now we have bishop d3. And this is going back to rule 3. Let's just bring that one up. Remember, rule 3, develop your minor pieces, remaining minor pieces. And here, well, there's a couple of options here, but one of the main moves is b6. And I probably should have mentioned, really, against b6, my recommendation for you would now be e4. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm trying to keep this video as simple as I can, but this is a very good way to meet b6. This is a key way to meet the b6 move, e4. Because if there's multiple exchanges on e4, then b6 has weakened this diagonal. Let's just have a look very quickly. For example, pawn takes e4, knight takes. Let's say everything gets exchanged off, and you can now see this is a bit of a problem for black. So just the basic rule to remember, and this is like quite high class stuff, but if b6, you aim for e4. This is the key thing. Okay, now really I'm not going to go into too much, but I do want to talk about the final rule. And the final rule is be flexible with your move order. And I'm going to explain now with some demonstrations of what different setups, why this is important. So the move order and the rules I've told you are basic rules, but you've got to remember it's a game of chess and things change. Now, for example, one thing that a lot of players don't realise, and a lot of players still do, and one of the biggest mistakes you can make in the London system is after the moves, bishop to f4. Now, you might be wondering, why don't I play knight to f3 first? And this is what a lot of people playing the London system play. I'm going to tell you why. And this is coming back to rule 5, be careful with your move order. So let's say you play knight to f3 here. And now, one problem with this line is knight to f6. To do the London system, we have to move our bishop here. So we could also, let's just go back, go bishop f4 first, and then after knight to f6, go knight to f3. But this is kind of breaking rule 2. Can you remember rule 2? Create the pyramid, because we haven't created the pyramid yet. And the problem with this move order is black can now go c5. And if we create the pyramid now, let's say with e3, knight to c6, c3, the problem here is that black has a very good move which equalizes on the spot. And remember, with the white pieces, you're aiming for a slight advantage. You don't want to allow your opponent to get equality. And that move is queen to b6. And this is one move that so many London system players forget forget about. And this is a really nasty move. Now, as a rule against this, I'm throwing more rules at you. You want to meet this move with queen to b3. Now, you might be thinking, oh, a boring queen exchange. Well, if black ever takes on b3, this is very pleasant. Yes, the queens are exchanged, but you have a nice advantage. You've got an open a-file, a nice compact pawn structure. But the problem with this line is that black can play c4. And, of course, you don't want to exchange queens because then we allow black to open up this line for his rook. So the way we always meet c4, and this is another key thing I learnt, is to go queen c2. And given a chance, we want to go b3 and exchange off this c-pawn, and we get a very nice system. So if black plays a bad move here, let's say e6, we now go b3. And black really is forced to take on b3, and this is the pawn structure we're aiming for. White must be better here. Such a compact pawn structure. Later on, you'll be playing c4, and this is a very nice system. But the problem here is that black has a very good move, bishop to f5. And this move is a real problem, because if we take that bishop, black has queen takes b2, and we're losing because we're losing our poor little guy on a1. So what do we do against this idea? Well, that's the good question. Let's now be a bit more crafty, and we come back to something I said earlier. we only move our knight on g1 when black plays e6. So let's say that black tries to do the same thing. Let's create our pyramid, first of all. And now, rather than going knight to f3, well, okay, it's okay here because he's played e6. So let's just try a different move. So let's say he goes knight to f6 first. We go e3. He goes c5. We go c3. And now he goes knight to c6. Okay, so let's look at this. So he hasn't played the move e6 yet, so you've got to be careful moving this knight. If you go knight to f3, black goes queen b6, equal. A simple way to avoid this is by moving the other knight. Moving the knight on b1, and there's a key difference here. And the key difference is, if black tries the same thing with queen b6, we now go queen b3. And if black now goes c4, the problem that we had previously, we go queen c2, and the whole point here is that black cannot play this very annoying move, bishop to f5, because we can simply take on f5, and if black takes on b2, our rook is not trapped, it can move to b1. So we avoid that idea. So that is a move order thing which is key to remember in the London system. And the basic rule is, just keeping it simple, when black plays e6, so as soon as he plays e6, you can go knight to f3. Because then you don't have to worry about the bishop coming out. But don't play that until he plays e6. This is the thing. And if we go back to that last position, let's just say we get this. Again, now if black plays a move like e6, what move do you play here? You play b3. You play b3 because after an exchange on b3, you have a very nice, compact, good pawn structure. And this is a key thing to remember. Now, I could give you a number of examples of great attacking lines here, and let's just see some other... again, let's just see some of this in action, shall we? Some of the things I discussed. So, we'll go through it one more time, just for the rules very quickly. So, rule 1 is to run through. Start with d4 and bishop f4. So, bishop f4 now comes. And let's say black plays knight to f6, the standard move. What's rule 2? Rule 2, create a pyramid. So here we go e3, and after, let's say, c5, it doesn't matter so much, we go c3. So we create a pyramid. Now, remember, if the knight comes out, he hasn't gone e6, so let's go to the next rule. We need to develop your remaining knights and bishops. So here, he hasn't gone e6, so it's better to go knight d2 first. And at some point, if he ever moves the bishop out too early, well, there's a problem. Then you can go queen b3. So e6 is certainly the move you will encounter in the majority of times in London. Of course, it's only a quick YouTube video. I can't cover everything. Go to my chess-based DVD for a more in-depth look at this if you want to learn the opening properly. I'm just trying to give you something nice and easy to learn as white. Okay, so now we need to develop our pieces. He's gone e6, so we can now move our knight out. And now, if bishop e7... we go eventually for a plan with knight e5. But let's move the bishop out first. Castles, knight e5. And here there's two attacking plans. One, bring the queen around to h3. And my other favourite attacking plan here is to go h4, which sets up some deadly ideas. Some really nice ideas here. Now, if bishop d6 here, what do you do now? Well, remember, it's a Mexican standoff, so you need to do something about your bishop. You should retreat your bishop to g3, hoping he will capture, so you open up your rook. Better for him to castle, and now you complete your development, bishop d3. And here, if b6, the key thing is, as soon as b6, you go e4. Now, if black doesn't go b6, there's a very funny trick here, which I've seen. If queen e7, well, we can actually go back to the other plan, and this is rule 4 now. So you have to be flexible, as we see in rule 5, but you have to either remember to play your knight into the centre or to play your pawn into the centre. And it depends on the situation. So this is rule 4. So here, it's either knight into the centre or e4. What do you think is correct here? Well, he hasn't gone b6 now. So I think here, knight into e5 is the best move. And this goes to rule 5. You have to be flexible. I'm giving you basic rules here, but you have to flip those rules depending on the situation. And there's a lovely trick here. And a trick, I just wanted to show you one more thing, which a lot of grandmasters falling for. Let's say that black fights for control of the e5 square, because this knight is a real pain. And we can even go pawn to f4, next move, to gain more control over this square here. It's a bit like a reversed Stonewall Dutch. Now, a lot of grandmasters have played knight to d7 here. And now I'm going to show you another example of the Greek gift, which we saw previously. There's a great idea here, an amazing idea. Knight takes d7. Now, black will generally take with a bishop to defend to get his bishop out, and it looks like black should be absolutely fine here, but black is probably on the verge of losing, because we can go bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, and now we take on c5. And the whole point of all these exchanges is that we've made the queen move to this square, and here there's a devastating idea. Bishop takes h7, check, boom. And again, after king takes, we now come with a combination of queen and knight. Queen to h5 check, the king has to retreat, and we see now the real reason why the queen is on c5, knight to e4. A devastating trick, this one. And if black takes the knight, we win the queen and we win the game. And when black moves the queen, our knight comes into this square on g5, threatening queen to h7 checkmate, and this position is winning for white. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just want to show you again, who says the London system is boring? Look at this line. It's another example of the London system kicking some butt. Okay, look, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that gives you a little bit of only a very basic eye-opener to an opening. And of course, when you're playing chess, it's a really tough game, and if you're a beginner, this is aimed at beginners upwards a little bit, to give you a little taster for the London system. And I hope it gives you an idea that you might want to go out and play it now. And really, we're just concentrated on this video. Remember, there's 3 setups that black can play, which I discussed, but in this video we've just concentrated on the way to play the London system against d4, d5, and I hope I've simplified things as much as I'm able to and given you a little taster. And remember, if you want anything more detailed about these openings, buy my DVDs. Go to GingerGM.com. I've got a selection of tutorial DVDs, and in those DVDs I go into great depth about everything you need to know. So a lot of detail and also the overviews. Also, you can check out my DVDs I've done for ChessBase. This one on the London system will be a ChessBase DVD. Go to their website, buy those DVDs. Anything to support me would be great. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please like, please subscribe, please share, please play the London system. And I'll be back again with the other parts of this at some point in the future. Thanks for watching.